Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today, everyone? I am excited to be back. We're back 2 weeks in a row. Thank goodness. Back on track. Back to the normal schedule here. It is great to see everybody. We've got a couple topics we can talk about this week. I would say it hasn't been like the biggest week ever for video game news, but there is a few topics that we can break down, a few things that we can discuss. Probably the biggest one of the week so far, at least, is this report that just came out today. Just came out from Reuters, and what they are saying is citing three sources with information on the matter. It sounds like Europe is about to approve the Activision Blizzard deal. Now, what they say is that basically those things that we talked about last week during the chat, in fact, it's perfect timing because I had somebody literally ask in last week's chat, they said, Benji, do you think that these things that Microsoft's doing, where they gave this deal to Nintendo for 10 years, where they did this deal with Nvidia for streaming, and where they said, hey, we've got the contract right here in our pockets even for 10 years for PlayStation. All they got to do is sign. I had someone ask me, and they said, Benji, do you think these things will be effective? And I said, it definitely, I think, strengthens their argument. Now, I didn't say, hey, it's for sure going to be a slam dunk. It's for sure going to be a home run. It's for sure going to go through. But I thought they were pretty strong things to say, and it looks like it worked. From Reuters, they're saying it sounds like this thing is about to be passed pretty soon. We'll probably get an official announcement on this. You know, I'm not going to say today or tomorrow, but we're probably going to get an official confirmation from Europe that they're going to allow it through pretty soon, I would think. A really important piece of information here too. Not only are they going to approve it, but one of the other things that has been discussed is, hey, you know, is Microsoft going to have to sell off Call of Duty and spin that off into its own thing? Are they going to have to just take pieces of Activision Blizzard to get this thing to go through? It sounds like Europe is, specifically, we're just talking about Europe here. We're not talking about the UK or the US. It sounds like they're going to let this thing just sail through, but, no other concessions besides the ones that have already been presented from Microsoft, at least what it sounds like. Keep in mind, none of this is official yet. This is Reuters citing sources. However, that's a pretty major publication, and it's not one or two. They say they have three sources on this, so it's probably pretty accurate. I'm not going to tell you it's a slam dunk, but probably pretty accurate. So that's a pretty big topic we can talk about. Another thing that came out that's getting a lot of discussion is Hi-Fi Rush has passed 2 million players since its launch in January. It's become a hot button topic on if that's a good number or if that's a bad number. We can talk about that if you guys want to. I won't be shocked at all if there's some questions about that. We found out that Luminous Productions is closing. It sounds like Forspoken kind of bombed, which was a bit to be expected. In my Hi-Fi Rush tweet, there was a ton of discussion about how Forspoken must have done so much better than Hi-Fi Rush. Well, I've got pretty bad news for you guys. It did not do good. Luminous Productions is no more. They are shutting down, the studio that made Forspoken. So we can talk about that if you guys want to, and we can talk about so much more. If this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. You just type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in Super Chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel and guarantee that I get to your questions. Chat is already filling up, so if you have any questions, make sure you drop them into chat now, because there already is quite a bit for me to get here to today. So start filling that chat up if you guys want to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about, the couple topics I noted off the top. It can be about whatever you want. Okay, I think we don't have any super chats to kick us off here, so we're going to go straight into free questions. Blazing Flame here with the first one. Hey, Benji, thoughts on PlayStation saying if the deal goes through, they will have less innovative first-party games and less investment? Are they overblowing things to block the deal or telling the truth? Blazing Flame, I think that what Sony has been saying, from the very beginning has been essentially trying to paint the worst case scenario possible to try and block this as hard as they can. So do I believe this statement from them? No, I do not. I don't believe this statement actually at all, especially because if you look at the massive push that Sony themselves are doing into games as a service right now. This isn't like a subtle thing or like a theory. Jim Ryan himself has come out and said that they have multiple games as a service titles on the way from PlayStation and their partners, that they're, like exclusive deals that they have with partners. Some first party studios are making games as a service titles. So no, I mean, if anything, Sony themselves are the ones pushing towards multiplayer right now. Now, do I think that we're going to see a decline in single player, whether this deal goes through or not? No. Look at what just happened with God of War Ragnarok, right? Look at the sales of that game. Look at what just happened with, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. My allergies are kicking. Okay. I think maybe I'm good. My seasonal allergies are like destroying me right now, by the way, guys. So sorry. But look at how God of War Ragnarok just sold. Look at the sales numbers of Hogwarts Legacy, which I know isn't first party, but it's a single player game. Look at how big Spider-Man was for them. Look at how big games like The Last of Us and Uncharted have been for them. Sony's not going to just magically stop making single player games if Microsoft gets Activision Blizzard. That's silly talk. It's Sony just trying to position themselves as the victim in this situation like they've done from the beginning. And like I've said from the beginning, I don't fault them for it. So whenever I say these things, it's not me beating up on Sony and saying, hey, Sony's so bad. If I was Sony, I would be fighting this tooth and nail myself, right? It's in their best interest. It's in Sony's best interest if this deal doesn't go through. So if you're Sony, you're going to try and make this look like the worst thing in the world because, hey, it's in your best interest to try to stop this deal. So do I believe them when they say this? 0%. No, I don't believe it in any way, shape, or form. Now, Sony is not allowed to lie, right? But this wouldn't be a lie. This is their opinion. They're saying we don't think that we're going to be able to make as much of an investment into single player. Now, if Sony came out and they lied specifically about like how much they paid for Call of Duty, right? Because it sounds like we're about to find out a whole bunch of details about what Sony's been paying for all of these third-party exclusives and marketing deals, because that just got ordered by the FTC that they got to provide documents to Microsoft that Microsoft requested on all of this, and Sony tried to fight it, and they're forced to. So that's going to be interesting if some of this stuff comes out. We might find out exactly how much they paid for Final Fantasy VII Remake. We might find out how much the Call of Duty deal was and all of that sort of information, which will be fascinating. I hope it does come out. Microsoft at least is going to know. But yeah, I don't, if they lied about those numbers, that would literally be illegal. They're not allowed to do that, right? They're not allowed to say, we only paid $500 million for the Call of Duty deal if it was really $1 billion, right? Like, they're not allowed to say something like that. But these sort of like forward-looking statements, these nebulous type things, they can kind of paint that however they want. And it's up to the courts and up to everyone involved with this deal to see if they believe them or not. If you're asking my opinion, no. There's no reason for them to back off of single-player games, especially with the massive success they themselves as well as third-party have had in that genre recently. So no, I wouldn't worry about that if you're a PlayStation fan. I wouldn't panic about it. Call of Duty is still going to be on PlayStation, by the way. This isn't really going to hurt Sony in any way, shape, or form in terms of Call of Duty specifically. I don't think Call of Duty is ever leaving PlayStation, guys. I know that the contract that's being offered is 10 years. I think Call of Duty will be on PlayStation 20 years from now. So in terms of Call of Duty itself, I don't think it's going to hurt PlayStation at all. Now, where Sony might get hurt by this Activision Blizzard acquisition is I think there will be plenty of exclusives coming from Activision Blizzard for consoles. That's one thing that keeps getting mixed up in all of this. People keep thinking that Microsoft's saying everything's going to be multi-platform from Activision Blizzard. They've never made that statement. What they've said is that games that already exist on multiple platforms are going to stay there. And then the main thing they keep driving is Call of Duty. I don't think Call of Duty is going to leave at all. But if this Activision Blizzard acquisition happens, I think that, survival game that's coming from Blizzard that's a new IP, I won't be shocked at all if that skips PlayStation. If one of these Activision Blizzard studios is making another new IP, I won't be shocked at all if that skips PlayStation. So that sort of environment might hurt PlayStation, but Call of Duty specifically, no. It's going to be the exact same as it is right now, basically. You can argue maybe they'll lose a little bit of software sales off of Call of Duty from people going to Game Pass. I think that will have some impact, but I've said publicly here many times, I don't think that they're going to get the amount of people leaving PlayStation for Call of Duty to come to Xbox as maybe Microsoft or even Sony thinks. It's essentially $170 purchase every 12 months. I don't know how many people that are on PlayStation right now that are already buying PS5s and are already buying Call of Duty are going to magically suddenly be like, you know what? Even though this is where my friends list is, and I know there's crossplay now, guys, but even though, this is the console I have at home, this is the console that I love, this is the ecosystem that I'm used to, you know what? I'm going to drop all of this, and now Xbox is going to be my main platform just because I can save $70 once every 12 months by getting it on Game Pass. And that's only a theoretical savings because it depends on how much you're using Game Pass, because you do have to pay a subscription fee. I've been saying for a while, I don't know that Call of Duty itself is going to have the Game Pass moving effect that Microsoft and Sony thinks it's going to. Do I think that Game Pass is definitely going to see a lift in subs from this? Absolutely. There's not a doubt in my mind. They they will, in my opinion, gain millions of subscribers from this deal. But do I think suddenly 10 plus million people that are buying Call of Duty on PlayStation every year are suddenly going to be like, you know what? Now I'm not buying this, and now all of those sales crater, and now I just do Game Pass. No, I don't expect that at all, if I'm going to be honest with you. Not much at all. Now, I do think this deal overall is going to be big for Game Pass growth, because I think Blizzard in particular, that's the thing I keep tweeting about. People just keep focusing on Call of Duty, 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 Call of Duty. I think Blizzard's the bigger impact. If we're talking about Game Pass subscribers, if we're only talking about Game Pass subscribers, not revenue, not profit, growth to Game Pass subs. And I wonder if Microsoft somewhat thinks like me and is playing coy about this, which is why they're never mentioning Blizzard. I don't know. I haven't had anyone at Microsoft tell me this. But if you get heavy WoW integration onto Game Pass, if you get heavy Overwatch integration into Game Pass, if you get heavy Blizzard's next IP integration into Game Pass, and all of this sort of stuff, we already know PC currently is the biggest growth market for Game Pass subscribers. I could actually see Blizzard long-term having a bigger impact on Game Pass than Call of Duty does. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. But long answer, but the overall question, do I think that Sony's suddenly going to just not be able to invest into single player games? No. No. That's just Sony talk, trying to block the deal. Okay. We did have a super chat. We have several super chats that just popped in. Thank you guys. First of all, we've got Carlos Alvarado here with a $1.99 super chat. Saying Luminous being closed is eye-opening. Hi-Fi King. Okay, yeah, we can go over Luminous really quickly. So I'm not shocked by this. I am not shocked by this at all. Forspoken wasn't tracking well. We had talked about this. The tracking on it was very, very poor. And the thing that people need to remember, I keep seeing people in my comment section saying that Forspoken didn't have a big budget. Oh, yeah, it did. This game was in development for years and years and years, and Luminous Production was not a small studio. You can just do basic maths on how much games cost. You can just do a head count and times it by the average salary, and you pretty much get to where you're at, right? Of course, there's always going to be more fees involved with making a game, but the most basic, simplistic way to find out how much a game costs, just look at how many devs were on the game and look at how many years it took. That is literally the bulk of any video game production's budget ever. It's a simple math equation. If 10 people worked on a game and it took them 2 years, that's going to have a much smaller budget than if you had 500 people working on a game for 5 years, right? Simple math. That's what it is. The main cost of a game is paying the devs to make it. Of course, there's going to be a ton more on top of that. Marketing, how many other studios are being brought in, what sort of maybe payments you have to do to those studios besides just normal dev head counts. There's going to be other factors too, but the most simplistic way. And Luminous is not a small studio, and Forspoken was in development for many years, and it appears that it did not sell that well. So I'm not shocked by this. Now, the good news is it sounds like that most of these devs are going to be moved in-house to Square Enix. So it doesn't sound like you're going to see a mass layoff situation. And And it's kind of funny because I literally had this exact discussion in a Discord channel. I'm not much on Discord. I have one very small Discord that I myself run with a few of my friends. And it's funny because I could literally show you picture evidence of this. I'm not going to, but I could, of me a few weeks back. And I said, I seriously wonder if Luminous is going to be closed and they're going to move those devs over to help with the Final Fantasy teams, the Dragon Quest teams, etc. It's exactly what's happened. Quite literally exactly. So I was on the money on that one. Luminous is being shut down. Those devs are being moved in-house to other... Not that Luminous wasn't in-house, but they're being moved to other, internal Square Enix teams to help on other projects, which I'm sure are primarily going to be Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest teams. So, pretty interesting. I'm just glad it sounds like most people are keeping their jobs because I'm never going to root for layoffs. So the good news about Luminous, it's a bummer that it didn't work out for them. The good news, though, is it sounds like people are going to still keep their jobs. In regards to the comparisons with Hi-Fi Rush, I don't like doing console wars. I don't like people fighting over this sort of stuff. So I'll just say Hi-Fi Rush was a great game. And I'm sure we'll get into the 2 million number here pretty soon. Kadim Ahmed here with a super chat. Thank you so much, Kadim. Did you try the Final Fantasy 16 demo? I don't think that there's a public demo yet. I could be wrong. I think that there's one coming, but I don't think that is publicly available. And if I'm wrong on this, I apologize. However, if you mean did I get invited by Square Enix to cover it? No company so far has ever invited me to a preview event, a review event, anything. I've talked about this on the channel before. It's a little weird. I don't know if it's because I talk about sales a lot and it makes some publishers a little nervous, but oftentimes content creators that are much smaller than me get a lot of stuff with publishers that I don't get. Again, part of it could be that it's the sales factor and people are a little nervous to be like, hey, this guy might, a month from now be talking about how our game underperformed and we don't really want to partner with him on that. It could be also because, frankly, I don't do previews and reviews, right? I don't do that sort of stuff. I tweet about it, but yeah, no, I was not invited by Square Enix to try Final Fantasy 16. No publisher has ever invited me to preview or review a game, and I don't know if that will ever change, So we'll have to see. Not that my YouTube following is big, it's pretty small. But I mean, my Twitter, I see people with far fewer followers than me get all sorts of hookups from pubs that they don't ask me, which is not the end of the world, guys. I'm not in this for the freebies, but as of now, don't expect any of that sort of stuff from me because no one partners with me on it. So thank you for that super chat. I'm excited for Final Fantasy 16, super excited. If a public demo releases soon, I heard there's one coming, but I don't think it's out. If one does, then I'll definitely play it. Yeah, I'm hyped for this game. But I think the main reasons, like I said, I don't do previews and reviews. Highlander001 with a 10 super chat. Hey Benji, hope you and the family are doing good. Do you think we will see or learn anything from Sony having to turn over third-party deals to Microsoft and the FTC? Think they will blow back? So first of all, Highlander, thank you for that super chat. That's very generous. You're always very generous with the super chats. And this is fascinating. I don't know what all of this is going to become publicly released. Basically, what has happened is that the FTC has ordered that Microsoft requested documentation from Sony because this whole court battle that's going on, right? And the documents that they wanted were essentially, there's a few things, but I think the main thing, the thing that Highlanders here is asking and that a lot of people are wondering, one of the things they want is what are these third-party deals? Sony's over here talking about how Microsoft's trying to, be the big brother gorilla in the room in the industry, buying up everything. And Microsoft's essentially arguing, hey, Sony, you are the market leader and look at how many paid exclusives you have. Let's find out how much you're paying for all of those to see if it's really what you're talking about. Which is fascinating. Sony tried to block this, by the way. They fought it hard, and they did not succeed. So I don't know. Highlander, if some of this stuff comes out into public domain, it will be fascinating. If we could find out how much they paid for Final Fantasy VII Remake, fascinating. If we can find out exactly the dollar amount on how much they paid for that Call of Duty deal that they've had forever now, It will be fascinating. If we can find out how much they paid for Forspoken or how much they paid for, Spidey and Avengers and all of this sort of stuff, it'll be absolutely fascinating. Now, I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know what all of this is allowed to come into public domain, what has to be kept under wraps behind the scenes. I don't know. That'd be a good question for Hogue Law. I know he's not doing videos right now as he recovers. We're all rooting for Hogue, but I don't know. So Highlander, if we're going with a hypothetical situation, if some of that stuff comes out, could it be like a detrimental thing to Sony? I think the Call of Duty deal might be, because I think they spent a fortune on it. Now, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Forspoken, things like this, I doubt that they spent a ridiculous amount of money on these things. It'll probably be somewhat expected. We'll probably see that number and be like, yeah, that sounds about right for paying for a third-party exclusive. The one that might hurt them, because again, I don't think it was cheap, it might be how much they've been paying for Call of Duty, because it's probably significant how much they're paying. So that could be the one where people are like, Sony, how are you painting yourself in like a weak spot in the industry whenever you're spending this much money on just a multi-platform game just for a marketing deal? So that's the one we'll have to watch. Highlander, I don't know what all is going to come public. We'll have to see, but that will be fascinating. I'm hoping. My fingers are crossed we get this info, because you guys know me. I love data. I love numbers. I love looking at this stuff, and this is like a holy grail situation of numbers, but I suspect a lot of it won't. Some of this is probably going to be redacted, and we won't be able to see it, but hopefully a few things come through. All right, super chats are cleared. I'm going to run a poll really quick, because we forgot to do polls last chat. Pretty simple one. With the new info we've got, guys, let's run a poll, because I love doing the polls with you guys. I'm sorry I forgot last time. I'm going to ask you a simple question. With the Europe news, do you think the Activision acquisition finalizes? And I mean like overall, right? Worldwide. Like, is this thing going to go through? Not just with Europe. I mean the whole thing. Do you think this deal's going to go through, guys? We got yes. We've got no. And we've got a third option. Still have no idea. So there we go. With the Europe news, do you think the Activision acquisition finalizes? Boom. Let's see what you guys think. I'm very curious. Very curious to see what you guys think. All right, we had another super chat pop in. So answer that poll, guys, if you want to. Ham, the TSWS Gaming with a super chat. Thank you so much, Ham. Saying, I want to interview you. Is that possible? Well, Ham, we may be able to do that. Right now, I'm on a bit of a hiatus from any like podcasts or anything like that. Just because I've been going personally through like a really bad mental health battle the last few weeks. Things are definitely improving, but I still have some low days. So, Ham, we may be able to work something out like this soon. I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm on like a nothing list right now. I'm just doing my Twitter and then my YouTube live chats. If you mean on video, if this is like a video or audio thing, I'm kind of like, reserved at the moment, just until I get my mental health fully back on track. It's an everyday work right now. I got to do the work to get back there. So, but hopefully, Ham, we can. I'm horrible about checking DMs, notoriously terrible at it. But maybe sometime soon, okay? Because I'm definitely not opposed to it. I've been on podcasts and stuff before like that. So I'm definitely not opposed overall to doing it. But just right now, while I get myself back in check, I'm on a bit of a hiatus. But hopefully, Ham. Hopefully, I'm not ruling it out. Just give me a few more weeks and stuff to figure out what's going on and remind me in a few weeks or something. And thank you for that super chat. Okay. Venom Harness here. Hi, do you think superhero games should be single player focused moving forwards? Do you think they should stop making multiplayer games since it isn't working? I think everyone right now should be looking at what Insomniac did with Spider-Man. That to me is what every single studio that wants to make a Marvel game, what wants to make a DC game, that's your template. That's what you need to look at. Now, is that an easy thing to say, right? It's easy to say, hey, look at Spider-Man and look at Miles Morales. Look how good they are, right? That's much easier said than done. What I mean, though, is that it gave you that strong single-player narrative, story-heavy, great gameplay, and it really immersed yourself in being that hero. I think that's one thing that a lot of these other games are lacking, right? People keep bringing up things like Midnight Suns, or they bring up Avengers, or they bring up Marvel vs. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom. None of those games to me, though, felt like I'm really embodying the world and this character, and like I am Spider-Man. I know you're seeing Spider-Man's story, but Insomniac did such an amazing job of bringing Spidey and his specific world to life. Why do you think Hogwarts Legacy is such a massive success? Because that's what it is. You're feeling like you're really in Hogwarts, and it feels authentic and true. Same thing with this Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games. You truly feel like you're getting a new story, and it's authentic, and it's truly the feeling of being a Jedi. If you want to make a big, not multiplayer, big hero game right now, that's what you need to do. That's what this EA Motive game needs to be. I need to feel like I am truly experiencing Iron Man. I get that fantasy of being Iron Man, and I get to see his world come to life in a very authentic way with a cool story on it. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. I know everyone right now is in a desperate, and I say desperate, and I mean that. It's truly desperation. They're in a desperate race to just try and get that next Games as a Service title hit, but I just don't see it happening for that genre, right? Maybe someone somewhere is going to figure something out. I've talked about it. I don't think Suicide Squad's going to perform well. Maybe someone can crack that egg of getting a hero game that's successful as a service title. But if I'm being honest with you, I think you'll have an easier time if you just focus on one character or one small group of characters, and you really bring that world and that character to life in a strong single-player title. I think you have a much better chance of success with that than all of this other stuff. That's why Batman Arkham was so successful, etc., etc. That's what people want out of these sort of games. I don't think they want the next loot shooter out of it. I think they want to feel like they're that character and see their world. So that would be my answer, Venom. Yeah, I think that's what people should do, but publishers are absolutely desperate to try and get a Fortnite or an Apex Legends under their umbrella, so they're just doing anything they possibly can to get there. And mostly failing at it. Let me make sure there's no super chat. Nope. Arrowroot, just heard the news about Telltale Games delaying The Wolf Among Us 2 out of 2023. We have waited an age. Yeah, I loved the original The Wolf Among Us. So I've never read the Fables, I believe, comic that's based off of. So my only experience with that world at all is The Wolf Among Us, and I loved it. It's incredible, and it is a bummer that this thing is delayed. Hopefully Telltale can figure it out, because they're in a bit of a bind right now. They're delaying The Wolf Among Us. It sounds like The Expanse is still a bit off. Hopefully they can get a game out soon. But it is a bummer, because this game has taken truly forever. And I'm a little worried how it's going to perform, if I'm being honest with you. It's been so long since the original. I don't know. I'm a little worried that this is going to underperform, and I wonder how much that could hurt Telltale. I'm hoping it's not, guys, by the way. I'm rooting for this. I want this to be a massive hit, huge, if it's anywhere near as good as the first game. I'm a little worried about it, though, if I'm being honest. Not in terms of like a quality standpoint, but like a commercial standpoint. If I was them, I'd be trying to work out a Game Pass deal, if I'm being honest. I would be trying to figure out how do we launch this thing day one on Game Pass so they can get some upfront money, because I think they might need it. Player slot available. I have a most insidious and terrifying question. How do you define an RPG? Okay, player slot, I'm assuming that you're referring to the drama that's going around about Final Fantasy 16. It's a bit of a battleground right now in terms of, let me make sure my mic's still working. Yeah. So the devs behind 16 said that they don't want this to be referred to as a JRPG. And that's gotten like a big discussion on if JRPG is seen as almost like a derogatory thing, if it's kind of like looked down on. Here's my perspective, and keep in mind, I'm not Japanese, right? So I'm going to go 100% by what they say, because they are going to be much, much more in tune with this than I am, right? I'm a complete outsider perspective of this. All I can say, player slot, if this is what you're referring to, I think this is what you're maybe referring to, just because it's the new like hot button topic. I have used JRPG a lot, but I never meant it in like a looking down way. I love JRPGs. Now, do I play them all? No, but like literally since I was a child, one of my favorite franchises ever in all of gaming is Final Fantasy. I absolutely love Final Fantasy. I love a lot of the Tales games. I loved Tales of Arise. I loved a bunch of them. I can list a bunch of Tales games, etc., etc. There's a ton of JRPGs that I love. And so I've always just looked at it as JRPGs tend, not always, but they do tend to feel a little different than Western RPGs. So they're developed in Japan, they have a bit of a different feel to them than the West, and not in an insulting way, just a bit of a different vibe. So I've always used that, and I never saw it as a bad term. However, I think that there are some in the Japanese development side of the industry that do see it as insulting, and like, we're RPGs, we're not JRPGs, we're RPGs. We should be looked at the same as anything coming out of the West. And so if that's how they feel, then yeah, that should be how it's looked at. So now, if you just mean a general statement, how do I define an RPG? It needs to be very story heavy, obviously. That's just a go-to. It has to be very, very story heavy. I think not always, but in many cases, choice is pretty important. Now, it doesn't mean a Mass Effect style choice where it's like multiple different endings and stuff, but like a lot of choice needs to be involved in the game in general, hence the role-playing aspect, whether that's dialogue options, whether that's character builds, whether it's, all of that sort of stuff. Like a lot of choice for the player has to be involved in there. Like, I wouldn't consider The Last of Us is clearly not an RPG game. It's very linear. So very story heavy, lots of choice, and that's really about it. It's fairly loose to me. A lot of games nowadays have RPG mechanics. So those are the two main things for me. Let's see how that poll's going. So right now with the poll, 68% of you think that this thing's going through. Only 5% think that it is going to be blocked in the end. And 26% of you still have no idea. I respect that 26% of you, because that's really, if we're being honest, that's probably the most accurate answer. It's still hard to say if it does. But I do lean with the majority of the poll who are voting yes right now. I'm with you guys. I'm on the majority of that. I do think that this deal is going to go through. But we'll have to see. Michael Yu, some people are saying $2 million for Hi-Fi Rush is disappointing. For what the game is, and I think it's relatively niche, I think the $2 million is very solid. I'm guessing Microsoft Tango are pleased. I think some people fail to understand that not everyone will download all titles just because it's on Game Pass. Thoughts, Benji. Okay, let's get into this Hi-Fi Rush topic because it's super spicy. So I warned you guys. I literally warned you. A few chats ago, in fact, I even tweeted about this. I clipped out the video and I sent a tweet because I saw some people getting out of control on Hi-Fi Rush, thinking this thing was going to be like some juggernaut once we got a sales number. And I literally said a few chats ago, because you guys know I watch these charts every single day. Not every week, every day. I look at the Game Pass most played list every single day. I look at the Xbox overall most played games every single day. Every single day I watch these charts. And what I noticed was that Hi-Fi Rush did well, but it didn't explode on Game Pass. And I had talked about that a couple chats ago. Like I said, I clipped it out and even posted the audio video clip of me saying that on Twitter, because I could tell that some in the community were inflating how well Hi-Fi Rush was doing. Now, that doesn't mean, wait, I'm going to get there. That doesn't mean that I think that this 2 million number is bad. I don't, for what it is. But I had cautioned, guys, this is not like a High on Life. It's just not. High on Life hit number 1 on Game Pass over Minecraft. That's like extraordinary. Very, very few games that ever hit Game Pass ever do that. Very rare. To go past Minecraft is like basically unheard of. Minecraft is essentially always number one, and Forza Horizon 5 is essentially always number two. Now, every once in a while that can change, but I'm just telling you right now, 99.9% of the time, at least in the United States, I'm referring to the US here, anytime that you open the Game Pass most popular list, number one's Minecraft, number two's Forza Horizon 5. That's just the way it goes. High on Life was past both of them. It hit number one. That was one, that's why I was tweeting about it a bunch whenever it was happening, and I even had some people be like, why are you tweeting about High on Life so much? And I was like, well, you're following a sales account. And I'm telling you, High on Life's doing something that just doesn't happen on Game Pass. And lo and behold, we found out later, High on Life, biggest single player, biggest third-party launch ever on Game Pass. Now, what Hi-Fi Rush did, it hit top 10, but it never hit near that number one. In fact, I think the highest I saw Hi-Fi Rush peak in the United States was like number 9 or number 8, somewhere right around there, which is solid, but it's not an explosive performance. For example, Atomic Heart is doing far better. Like, once we get an Atomic Heart number, that's going to be much larger than what Hi-Fi Rush's was. Atomic Heart went all the way to number 3 on console. The only two in front of it, again, Minecraft and Forza Horizon 5, which are at 6 or whatever we're on now, which are essentially always number 1 and 2. It's exceptionally rare Game Pass can pass either one of those. So for Atomic Heart to hit number 3, that's very strong. That's very strong. That's going to be a big player number whenever it comes out. So I had known for a while, like, Hi-Fi Rush is doing good. It's doing solid for what it is, but people need to calm down on thinking this is going to be like some 10 million number whenever they report it. Now, to the 2 million itself, is it good? Is it bad? I think it's, how I would define it is solid. I don't think it's an exceptional performance. I also don't think it's a bomb like some people are trying to tell you. Now, the argument that will come out is Game Pass has 20, probably close to 30 million subscribers now. Why doesn't it have 30 million players? And the very easy answer for that is that anyone that makes these sorts of arguments, I easily dismiss because it tells me that you don't understand anything about how subscription services work. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but like, because this happens even whenever I'll tweet like a game did 10 million on Game Pass or whatever. I've done that before and people have been like, wow, that's bad. Game Pass has 30 million subs. And I'm just like, oh, like, your opinion's not one I have to listen to anymore because you don't understand how subscriptions work. So the biggest shows and the biggest movies that Netflix has ever had, if you go to their the biggest hits, the Stranger Things, the Extractions, the biggest hits they have ever had, guess what? Not even half of Netflix's total subscribers watch those shows. Sounds mind-blowing, right? The biggest things, not just a hit for Netflix, number ones, the biggest hits they've ever had. Not even 50% of their subscribers watch it. Not even half. That's just the way it works, guys. Just because something launches on a subscription does not mean a guaranteed we have X many subscribers, now X many people will play this game. Now, does that mean that I think Hi-Fi Rush is a massive success? No. I'm telling you guys right now, I think it's solid for a shadow dropped game that had zero marketing, that no one knew what it was until a month ago. You know, it's doing solid. Amazing? No, I personally don't think it's doing amazing, but I do think it's doing solid work. We need to see how it legs out. I think this is a game that could have some staying power for, you know, quite a few years. Keep in mind, this is also, I believe, not available on last gen. That will have some impact, as Series X and S don't have a massive install base yet. It's growing, but it's not massive. So that's a couple things to keep in mind, guys. Don't ever expect any subscription, whether that's a PlayStation Plus sub, whether that's a PS Now sub, whether that's a Game Pass sub, whether that's an Amazon Prime or a Netflix or an HBO Max. I mean, look at HBO Max. Not even close to all of HBO Max subscribers are watching The Last of Us, and The Last of Us is one of the biggest hits they've ever had. That's just how it works. If you're on a subscription, it's not a guaranteed that someone's going to interact with something. You have to still convince them. Like, you still have to convince somebody, yeah, it's on a subscription, but you're convincing someone for time. You're convincing them, hey, all these other games on Game Pass right now, you want to come play Hi-Fi Rush and not any of those other games. So, again, Hi-Fi Rush, I would say solid. I would not paint Hi-Fi Rush as amazing. I would not paint Hi-Fi Rush as just this incredible breakthrough that has just shattered all things. I also wouldn't say it's a complete bomb like some people are saying. That's just, I think not accurate. If this was a Halo game that had a ton of marketing and it had 2 million players, yeah, okay, that's a different scenario. That I'd be a little alarmed about. But a game like Hi-Fi Rush, which was literally shadow dropped with no marketing, I think it's solid. But don't go too crazy over it. Let's see. Any super chats? Yes. We have a super chat here from Highlander with a 10. Do you see Sony changing how they make their third-party deals after this? And when do you expect to see numbers from Microsoft and Sony if the deal is approved? I mean, play, migration, and sales. Do I see Sony changing third-party? No. Sony will always be aggressive about locking in third-party content. So no, I don't think that'll ever change. I've said this before, guys. Phil keeps saying how exclusives need to go away. I disagree. Exclusives are vitally important. There's a reason why Amazon Prime pays an absolute fortune to have Rings of Power on their service. There's a reason why Netflix pays an astronomical amount of money to make shows like Stranger Things. There's a reason why Disney Plus spends an absolute fortune making shows like The Mandalorian. You have to have exclusive content to drive subscribers. It's just the way it works. If your content is everywhere, what motive do I have to either buy your console or engage with your ecosystem if I can just get it anywhere I want to? So that's one area where me and Phil, I would say, are a little bit at odds with one another. I think there's a lot of good about a lot of multi-platform content. And keep in mind, when Phil is saying move beyond exclusives, he doesn't necessarily just mean that they're not going to do console exclusives, because look at Starfield. Clearly they're going to do console exclusives. But I have been of the opinion, and I still stand by this opinion, that it's the inverse a bit of what Phil's trying to say. I think that exclusive content is actually more important now than at any point in time it's ever been in the video game industry. And the main reason for that is ecosystem growth. So if you're trying to grow an ecosystem, you have to convince people to come to your ecosystem, right? If I'm already perfectly comfortable on PlayStation and I am just great there and I have all these games that I love and all of this content that I love, and if Microsoft is not going to provide me reasons to be like, you know what, I really need to buy an Xbox, or you know what, I really need to, on my gaming PC, subscribe to PC Game Pass. You have to provide reasons for people to want to do that. And how do you do that? You give them something that they can't get somewhere else. That's just how it works. Basic math. Now, I think Phil's a little smart in how he's saying it. I think he does agree mostly with what I'm saying. But, so do I see Sony just suddenly being like, you know what? Less third-party exclusives? No. 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 I see Sony going after as many as they can lock in that they think is a good deal for them, they think can sell consoles. That's 1,000% what I expect from Sony. I expect that in the next year, and I expect that in the next 10 years. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. Again, Microsoft themselves seem to be moving a bit away from third-party exclusives. I still think they plan on all this first-party content. Again, this is what I mean by Phil's playing smart with his wording. I don't ever expect Starfield to come to PlayStation, so those are the pulls that I'm talking about to get somebody away from PlayStation, even if they're still keeping their PlayStation, but they'll also be in that Xbox ecosystem. So Phil's smart in how he's phrasing it. But again, do I think any of this affects Sony locking in third-party deals? Heck no, because you know what? Final Fantasy 16 is going to sell a lot of PlayStation consoles. And you know what? Final Fantasy VII Remake sold a lot of consoles and a lot of games on PlayStation, and they're counting on Rebirth selling a bunch of PS5s and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So no, this isn't going to go away anytime soon. Not at all. Look at Baldur's Gate. I know that that's not fully an exclusive, but it's going to come to Xbox later, and that's not a signed deal. It doesn't sound like from Sony. But again, expect a lot of this stuff in the future. And now, when do I expect we'll see an impact, from this acquisition? Immediately. I'm not of the opinion, whenever I say I'm not sure that this is going to have the impact, Call of Duty specifically. Keep in mind, I keep saying Call of Duty. when I say I don't know that Call of Duty is going to have the impact maybe that Sony or Microsoft thinks that it will in terms of like migration, like you're saying, that doesn't mean that I'm saying it's going to have no impact or that it's not going to get millions of more subscribers out the door, whatever. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't see it as this like end of the world type scenario that Sony's painting it as, or this like, you know, suddenly Xbox is just like the most successful thing in the world situation. Not at all. But will there be some impact? Immediately, like instantly. As soon as this deal is through and you start getting Call of Duty games on Game Pass, and you start getting Blizzard games somehow integrated with Game Pass, etc., 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 you will see instant impact from this, I think, in subscribers, etc. The thing that I only am cautioning about, Highlander, is people thinking that, you know, Call of Duty sells 30 million copies a year. Now all of a sudden Game Pass is going to go up by 30 million subscribers. You know what? Now they got Call of Duty. Who's even going to play this on PlayStation anymore? 30 million subs moved over. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, just it's not. It's just not going to happen, okay? Millions? Yes. Absolutely, they're going to gain millions of subs through this. But it's not like suddenly this game just stops grinding to a halt selling on PlayStation. No one's buying it there. It doesn't make sense that that's what would happen. But the impact overall, like when will you start to see some impact? As soon as the deal closes. In terms of like closes and there's a real consumer benefit. As soon as that first Call of Duty game's on Game Pass, you will see an instant impact from it. Just be careful to think that like suddenly now like Call of Duty's dead on PlayStation, because that won't happen. It's just not going to. A couple more super chats coming in. Thank you so much, guys. George Corona III with a 10 super chat. With Final Fantasy 16 around the corner, any thoughts on how they announce and release the next stuff in the Final Fantasy universe? 7 Remake 2, rumors of 9 Remake and 13 Trilogy, etc. Thanks for a great turnout today, by the way, guys. Over 100 in chat today. Thanks so much. That's always like a big milestone to me when we do over 100 in chat. We've had it for a while, so I very much appreciate that, guys. Very, very much. Now, okay, the future of Final Fantasy. So Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 is already announced. They already did the trailer for Rebirth. But do you mean like when will they show it again? Soon, because that's scheduled to come out this winter. Now keep in mind, that does not necessarily mean this year. I keep seeing people say that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, aka Rebirth, is coming out this year. It might, but this winter does not mean this year. That could absolutely mean January or February of next year. They did not say winter 2023. I believe the exact wording in the trailer is coming this winter. So that could be December, it could be November, depending on how they want to say it, or that could be January or February of next year. So either way, though, it's not super far away, but clearly the focus right now is going to be on Final Fantasy 16 since it's close. So I don't think you see Rebirth shown again until after 16 comes out, which isn't that far away anyways. Actually, I could be wrong because there is that PlayStation Showcase coming up. Okay, here's what I'll say. If there was no PlayStation Showcase right around the corner, I would say you wouldn't see Rebirth, I don't think, until after they shipped 16 again. Because they just would really want to focus on 16. However, that PlayStation Showcase definitely throws a wrinkle on things. It might be there. It might. That would actually kind of make sense for it to be there since it's a PlayStation exclusive, the marketing deal. So maybe you see it there, actually. 9 Remake is a huge question mark because we don't really know anything about it other than it exists. For anyone that missed this, it was in the NVIDIA leak, infamously, that has been like spot on with tons of unannounced games. 9 Remake was in there. I do believe that's real considering where it came from. But we don't know if this game's exclusive. We don't know if this game's multi-platform. We don't know if it's a remake in the style of like 7 Remake, where this is a gigantic project, or if it's something like smaller scale remake. We don't know. So I have no idea how that'll be announced. 13 Trilogy to me makes a ton of sense. I think they should do that on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Just package them all in one for, cheap. And but I don't know if it'll come. But it would make sense. It would make sense. Oni X with a 2 super chat. It's crazy how Forza Horizon 5 and Sea of Thieves never drop Steam top 100. And not to mention that a lot of people are playing those games through Game Pass, even on PC, because you don't have to buy it. People love Steam, but, as Game Pass grows, just like we're going to see the same thing on PC that we're starting to see on console, in that as that subscriber base grows, there is going to be less and less people playing these first-party Xbox games on PC. We need to be prepared for that, guys, because it's going to happen. People do love Steam, absolutely, and the Windows Store, is a nightmare to deal with for Xbox games. But if you can still save a ton of money by being subscribed to Game Pass, like Starfield, I think it's going to do huge on Steam, but I think that won't even be close to representing how many people are actually playing Starfield on PC, because a ton of people are going to be playing that through Game Pass, which isn't going to show up on Steam. So, yeah, Forza Horizon 5 and Sea of Thieves are massive long-term successes for Microsoft. Like, the legs on these are just unbelievable. They're always in the top most popular on Game Pass, and they're always in the top 100 on Steam. And they also pop up a lot on, like, top sales charts whenever they get good discounts. So, yeah, those are 2 examples of very good service titles successes for Xbox. Anthony M. Johnson from Mercenary Knight Publishing with a super chat. Thank you so much. How accurate is Ampere's report of 18.5 million Xboxes? Ampere's a pretty good source. It's not rock solid. I believe that Xbox is actually a little bit higher, mostly because my buddy Welfare estimates it to be higher, and my buddy Dom. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I trust both of them more than Ampere. That might sound surprising to you, because a lot of people put a lot of faith in these like public companies, but if I'm going to be honest with you, I would take Dom's Playing's estimates and Welfare's estimates both. You're talking about me personally. I personally think that they would have better estimates than Ampere. I trust those dudes fully. They're both very, very great number crunchers, and it could be right. It's close. Here's what I'll say. Either way, Ampere's report is close, because even the higher estimates for Xbox Series have it at low 20s. No one's estimating this even in the mid 20s. So if Ampere is off, and this is an if, and by the way, Ampere's report is sell through, not shipped. There's going to be a little bit of lag there, not a massive amount, but there will be some lag between sell through and shipped. Shipped will be a little bit higher. Because Series S mostly. Series X's are basically selling as they hit stores, but Series S you can usually find. So some of that is going to have a gap in it. But here's what I'll say. I would say Ampere's estimate either way is close enough, because even the high-end estimates for Xbox Series have it low 20s. We're talking 20, 21, like right around there. So if Ampere's off, they're off by a million or two, not a big amount. It's close. No matter what, don't think that Xbox Series is at mid-20s, high 20s, etc. It's in that range. We'll go anywhere from Ampere's 18.5 up to 2021, somewhere in that range. That should be right around where Xbox Series is, right in that area. And Welfare's estimate, by the way, was shipped. So, and same for Dom. Dom and Welfare are both estimating ship numbers, whereas Ampere is sell through. So that will have a little lag as well. It's close enough. Close enough. Okay, Randy Norman. Which live service game will be more successful? Everwild, State of Decay 3, Contraband, or ZeniMax's new IP? Do you think Hellblade 2 is releasing late this year or first half next year, Benji? Okay, so out of those games, which I think will be the most successful? State of Decay 3. Well, it's hard for me to say on ZeniMax's new IP because we haven't seen it. Elder Scrolls Online turned out to be a massive success. Like, Elder Scrolls Online is still beasting all these years later. Look at how many expansions it's had. So I would say out of these, the two that I would have the most confidence in is ZeniMax's new IP or State of Decay 3. State of Decay 2 did very well, and all of the rumblings, be careful what you say about rumblings, but the rumblings are that State of Decay 3 is a massive jump over 1 and 2 in many, many, many ways. So considering how popular State of Decay 2 was, I would say State of Decay 3 or ZeniMax's new IP are the two that I think will be most successful. Everwild is just real hard to say because up until recently, Rare didn't even know what that game was. And Contraband, it's hard to know if that game even exists still. I think it does, but like that thing disappeared off the face of the earth. Microsoft ain't talking about it. No one's talking about it. That thing just disappeared. So they must have had some dev troubles. Now, do you think Hellblade 2 is releasing late this year? Yes, that is the rumblings. Now, I don't know that, so don't take that as gospel. But the rumblings are that Hellblade 2 is late this year. Yeah, like September or later. So I could see it. Because right now they don't have any big holiday season game, and combine that with the rumblings that Hellblade 2 is late this year, I think so. How much Ford? Benji, hope you are better now, improving every day. When do you think Starfield Showcase will be happening? I'm starting to worry that the game is delayed to the second half, LOL. I have to be careful what I say about Starfield because I know some things about it in terms of release timing. So I got to be careful of what I say about that because I'm not really a leaker guy. Should you be worried that the game is delayed till the second half? What I have heard is there is a... I ain't going to say it. Anyways, when do I think the showcase is going to be? It's going to be in March. I'm like 99% sure. So you should at least see it soon and have a date soon. But we'll see. And I have to be careful what I say about release timing. Player slot available. A more serious question. Do you not consider subscription services a form of FOMO? It is such an old business model that I think most people don't realize it fits all of the criteria for FOMO. If you mean fear of missing out, a form of FOMO... I don't really see it too much as FOMO specifically. I see subscriptions more as just like really easy to access and really easy to be part of the conversation. Like for example, Hi-Fi Rush. That game was, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, it's very easy, if you even know it exists, by the way, because Hi-Fi Rush had zero marketing. We've talked about this before, guys. Marketing's pretty important, actually. But when a game hits a subscription at launch, let's say, now you can be part of the conversation if you're someone that's engaged on Twitter, if you're on forums, if you're on YouTube, whatever platform it is that you talk with people about games on. If you're one of those people, a subscription makes it very easy to be part of that conversation because, hey, I don't have to go out and drop 60 or 70 bucks on this. I can just install it and be playing it and talking about it with everybody right now. So FOMO more implies like I'm going to miss out. So if you mean miss out of the conversation, maybe there could be a bit of FOMO there. But I don't see it as a massive form of FOMO because like the first party Xbox games are never leaving Game Pass. So they're just there. And the other ones usually come so much decently later that the main conversation about these games has already passed. So depends on what you mean. If you mean maybe you'll miss out on the conversation if you don't play it instantly, sure. Otherwise, though, like I could go and play right now on the subscription a game from Xbox from years ago, like what's that one from Remedy? My brain's not working. But you guys know which game I'm talking about. I could go back and play that. I could go back and play any of the Fable games. I could go play old games anytime. Like, I'm not going to miss out as long as I have that subscription. Logan Hardy. Hi, Benji. What do you think is more important, revenue or profit for these platform holders? Also hope you get better soon. Well, thanks for the kind words. Which is more important? On the surface, it sounds very easy to say profit, and profit is important for sure. Like, you have to be profitable, but you also nowadays really want massively high revenue numbers because those are very useful for things like stock. If you're generating a ton of revenue, shareholders tend to like that. Look at Netflix. Netflix infamously had very low profit margins or were even negative on profit for forever, but investors loved them because they had super high revenue and they had super high subscriber growth. So it depends. If you mean survivability long term, obviously it's very important to be profitable because you have to actually be making money at the end of the day. But don't discount just super high revenue too, because investors love it. They love to see a ton of big numbers. You know what I mean? I know it sounds super basic, but a lot of people see big shiny number, big shiny revenue growth, and they're like, wow, things are looking up. Even if the profit is, let's say, okay, but it's not like amazing, they'll be like, yeah, but look at that growth. That means the profit's going to come. It's going to come. So both are very important. It's hard to say like which is more important. I mean, at the end of the day, end all be all, it's probably profit, because you do have to make money as a company at some point. But it's not as obvious as you might think, because revenue, really high revenue, is very attractive. Gamefire Cribider. I don't think I'm saying that right. Benji, what are your thoughts on Luminous Productions? Yeah, we talked about this. Merged into Square with how bad Forspoken did, and the same thing happened with the new Saints Row studio that merged with Gearbox. Is it a trend? Is it a trend? I mean, it's not unheard of. You know, this is the thing that's happened before, but both games that you're referencing both underperformed. Yeah, Forspoken underperformed, and so did Saints Row. So there's a real thing in the industry right now consolidating around like big tentpole IP and big tentpole like individual games. I think some of these publishers are looking, like I mentioned Luminous, like I am pretty sure most of those people are going to move over now to Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Like if you're in Square Enix's position just as a business, I know this sounds very alarming if you want to see new IP, right? If you're someone that's like, yeah, maybe Forspoken didn't quite work out, but at least we got like Square Enix trying a new IP. Totally makes sense. But if you're Square Enix and you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, Final Fantasy right now is doing very well for us. It just is. If you look at, you know, whether it's the MMO, whether it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, whether it's Final Fantasy 15, which sold a massive amount of money, or you're like, hey, look at Dragon Quest. Look at how much Dragon Quest 11 did for them. Huge growth there. You're like, hey, we have all these employees that just made a game that, let's just be honest, didn't quite work out for us financially. Or we could take those devs and we can really focus them into making more Final Fantasy for us, more Dragon Quest for us, etc. Games that we know are doing super well for us, and getting these additional resources into the teams means we can get more games out the door faster in those franchises, you know, maybe better quality by having more staff on them. So it makes sense. You know, it's a bit of a bummer to see a studio go away. But on the flip side, you're like, yeah, but those resources now are probably being better utilized as a business. So it's a bit of a give and take, if I'm being honest with you. So, you know, it makes things a little more dangerous for new IP. That doesn't mean that they can't make more new IP. Square Enix clearly will make more new IP. So will everyone else. But you can look at this situation and kind of see why it happened and why they decided to do that. I think we've had some more super chats drop. Wow, lots of chat today. I'm not surprised though, the turnout's been very strong. For me, for my channel, very strong. All right, we have a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. I think that's your third one. This just came out. Europe antitrust regulators are not expected to block Microsoft's proposed purchase of Activision Blizzard. Reuters now reports. Yeah, it's actually the same report that I referenced. Like if you read the title, they basically said as much in that title. I think you're talking about Roundhill Investments tweeted that out as well. It's all essentially referring to the same Reuters article. Yeah, it sounds like Europe's done. You know, we'll find out soon, but it all indications are it sounds like Europe is about to approve this deal. We'll probably hear about it soon. Again, I don't know that's going to be tomorrow, but it's soon. Sounds like Europe's just going to sail this thing through soon. So, yep. J2 Blue engage with a 5 super chat. Speaking of Remedy, do you think Alan Wake 2 will still happen this year? J2 Blue, I do think so. And the main reason I think so is because Sam Lake tweeted in January, and he said it's a big year for us, and I'll give you a reason why, and he posted Alan Wake. Now, of course, like as always, games can run into delays. We've seen this so many times now, we should all be numb to it. So do I think there's a real chance that Alan Wake 2 could get delayed? Sure. But I think that Remedy feels pretty confident it's happening, considering, Sam Lake. I would feel like if you were like nervous about it, like you're like, ooh, I don't know if we're going to do it. I don't know that you would tweet something like that. And Sam Lake, he's like the head dude over at Remedy. And the fact he tweeted out like big year for us, Alan Wake, and he just tweeted that, not that long ago. He tweeted it in January. I think that Remedy feels pretty good about it. So if you had to make me bet right now, I think it still does hit this year. But, don't be shocked if it gets delayed. We've seen this too many times. But I feel like Remedy's probably confident. Benji with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Benji, is Square Enix strategy with Final Fantasy 16 more action, DMC / Dark Souls / God of War Bayo inspiration will allow Final Fantasy to have a wider appeal? I actually kind of think so, yeah. This is going to be met kind of controversial in the hardcore Final Fantasy audience, but I'm just being honest with you. A lot of people are afraid to engage with Final Fantasy and similar type games because they don't like turn-based stuff. I love turn-based games. I grew up on them, but I'm just being honest. There is a ton of consumers that don't like that and like a more action-style gameplay. So, do I think it's probably the right choice? Yes. I think it is probably the right choice. I still love turn-based games, guys. Love them. I would love to see another fully turn-based party RPG, Final Fantasy game come one day from Square Enix. But like the straight-up question, is this going to potentially have wider appeal? I'd say yes. Yeah, I would lean towards yes, it will. It will. Just because a lot of people really don't like that slower combat. They just don't. That's just the reality. And by slow, we mean like that turn-based, take your time. Not that they can't be successful. Look at Persona. Persona has sold tons as a turn-based game. But if you're trying to get to that like 10 million plus big, huge sales, going more action-heavy probably does help, yeah. Reverse World with a 2 super chat. Besides Forza, Hellblade 2, Xbox's E3 lineup wide open. E3? E3, they're going to show either Avowed or Fable. Like, they're going to. I don't know which one. Probably whichever one's launching sooner. But both those are huge RPGs that have been announced forever and still haven't been shown in any real way. I would 1000% expect one of those two there, if not both, but at least one. You're going to get either Fabled or you're either going to get Avowed. I think you probably see Project Belfry there. If not sooner, but I think they will show that because that's been in development for a while. Hellblade 2 is a lock, yeah, because they'll probably date it. Forza is probably a lock if it's not dated by then, because it sounds like, Forza is delayed, out of the before E3 timeframe that they said. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could show, though. The only thing that seems like a lock to me besides this stuff, like, definitely is going to be there is either Fable or Avowed. They will definitely show one of those two. I don't know which one, but if we leave this E3 without one of those being there, I would be utterly shocked. You got to show one of the two, if not both. I mean, they're old announcements now, and we've seen zero. This isn't an exaggeration. Zero. We've seen 0 on Avowed, and we've seen 0 on Fable, and you've had them announced for years. You got to show something. But it should be a good E3, yeah. Hopefully. How long have we been going? This has been a fun chat. I still got time. Still probably going to go about 20 minutes. DB will rise. Benji, PS5 has been on fire sales-wise this year. Up 6 times year over year in Spain, 3.3 times in Japan, 3 times in Europe, etc. With only 1 month left, I'm now really confident that Sony will meet its 6.2 million Q1 forecast. Thoughts? It is selling extremely well. I'm still not fully on that they're going to hit that forecast train. I hope it happens. I'm rooting for them to hit that, but my thoughts has been that they're going to hit, like 5 million, which is still insane, by the way. Even if it's down, it's still, like, from their forecast, it still would be an utterly massive Q1. Like, if they hit 5 million in Q1, it would still be gargantuan. I'm still going to play things a little more cautious. I'm going to still say 5 million range, but if they can hit 6.2, it would be truly incredible because it is selling like a beast, selling like a behemoth. So we'll have to see, but things are looking great. Got to be honest with you, looking great. 2023 is going to be a massive year for PlayStation 5 sales. Cameron Swear, pre-order data from Tears of the Kingdom seems massive in Japan. Prediction for the first 6 weeks, Nintendo's financial numbers. What was Pokemon again? What did Pokemon end up hitting in its first quarter? Let me pull this up really quick, just so I have the exact numbers. I don't know off the top of my head the exact number. I didn't mean to say Sword and Shield. I meant to say Scarlet and Violet. Whoops. And there's a reason I'm bringing this up. 20 million, right? Isn't that what it ended up doing? Yep, it ended up doing 20.61. Okay, so Pokemon ended up doing 20.61, but that was during the holidays. Which is an important thing to remember. It's during the holidays. I will say it's not going to come in at Pokemon numbers, considering Pokemon's during the holidays, and yes, there's 2 versions of it. But I think there's a real chance that Tears of the Kingdom is the biggest Nintendo launch month ever in the United States for a Nintendo game. In the United States. Worldwide, I don't know, but the US loves Zelda. Keep in mind, guys, the US is the market where when Switch launched, more copies of Breath of the Wild were sold than Switch consoles. Which will always be a crazy metric. More people bought Breath of the Wild than they bought actual Switches when Switch launched, and they came out at the same time. Crazy. That's a crazy number that will always be hilarious. The US, everyone loves Zelda, but the US specifically really loves Zelda. I will say that I don't predict it to do Pokemon numbers just because Pokemon has that advantage of the holiday season. Like globally, I'm saying. But I think there's a very real chance that the main prediction I'll make is that the United States, it's the biggest Nintendo launch ever in a single month in the US. Yep, that means I think it could do more than Pokemon and more than Animal Crossing at launch. Yeah, I think it might. In the United States. Globally is very hard to say, but US might be the biggest sell-through month 1 ever for a Nintendo game. I don't think that's impossible at all. At all. Brian the Savior, hello Benji. Any insight on how the 3 consoles and Hogwarts performed in February in the US? Are you expecting any record-breaking performances? I expect PlayStation 5 to be number 1 in NPD, and I expect PlayStation 5 to have the biggest February in PlayStation history. That's right, bigger than any February ever for the PlayStation 4. Those are my 2 expectations. PlayStation 5 number 1 NPD, PlayStation 5 biggest February result ever for a PlayStation console. So more than the peak of what PS4 hit in a February. I think this will be higher. That is my expectation. We'll have to see, but I think so. And in terms of Hogwarts Legacy, friggin' massive. You know, what the number will be, I don't know, but ridiculous. I mean, this thing sold 12 million units in 2 weeks. It's going to be something stupid. Huge number. Samuel told Bear, Benji, with The Wolf Among Us 2 delayed to 2024. I'm sad, but it's the right call. What other games currently slated for 2023 do you see being pushed back? Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. And good friend of mine here, Samuel, you can always check out his work at like Windows Central and on Twitter. What else could get delayed that's this year? That we just haven't seen hardly anything on. I wonder if Armored Core will make it. I think Armored Core probably makes it, but I think there's some rumors rumbling around. It's like September. That's close enough to the end of the year that if something comes up, it could get pushed. But it has been in development for a while. So Armored Core 6 has been in development for a while. But I would say Armored Core's a maybe. Man, I'd have to go through the list. This is a bit of a hard question. I'm trying to think of games we've seen like nothing on. I mean, Alan Wake 2 is definitely a wild card. I said earlier that I think it will, but that is also a game that we've seen essentially nothing on. So it's, of course, a candidate. Arc Raiders, I wonder if that's still going to come out this year. Arc 2, I wonder if that's going to still come out this year. It's a little weird. We've seen nothing on Assassin's Creed Mirage still, but I still think it makes it. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of games we've seen like nothing about them. So that's kind of a few off the top of my head. Forza's going to make it. Starfield's going to make it. You know. So that's a few. That's a few off the top of my head. I'm sure there's some I'm missing, but basically any game that's announced for this year that you've seen literally nothing about it probably is a candidate. Spider-Man, I do think will make it, though. I do think Spider-Man makes it. But yeah, that's a few. Gary Sanchez, Benji, with how high the social metrics have been for Elden Ring's expansion, Shadow of the Erd Tree, do you think it will be the highest selling expansion of all time? Ooh. For a single-player game, it will probably be one of. If we're talking single-player, I mean, if you're going to talk expansions, like best-selling, you'd have to include things like WoW, which has had ridiculous sales for, like, World of Warcraft expansions, for example. But if we're talking, like, for a single-player, I know Elden Ring has multiplayer as well, but we're talking, like, a non-MMO, non-Call of Duty or Halo expansion, like, for a game that has a huge single-player component, I would say Shadow of the Erd Tree is definitely going to be one of, yes. It will be one of the top-selling single-player-ish expansions of all time. The metrics are stupid. This thing did over 500,000 likes on Twitter. It did over 40 million views in less than a day. It's stupid. It's stupid. So yes. It'll be for a single-player type game, yeah. I don't know that it's going to hit like the kinds of numbers that like a Call of Duty map pack has hit, or if it's going to do the kind of numbers that like, you know, some of the WoW expansions have hit, maybe. But like, you know, comparing to other similar type games, it should be one of the biggest, yeah. Absolutely. Brad Myers, Ninja Theory released a new Dev Diaries episode today for Hellblade 2. Is that a sign that Ninja Theory is setting up their marketing for Hellblade 2 to launch later this year? That's the rumor, yeah. The rumor is that Hellblade 2 is this fall. Again, I don't know that. This isn't me confirming. It's not Benji confirms Hellblade 2 is this year. It's just that is the word on the street, is that Hellblade 2 is this fall. If it is, I'm assuming it'll get a date at E3. Make sure I haven't missed any super chats as we start to get close to the end. We're not quite there yet, but we're coming into that last 10 to 15 minute range. Oh, I just saw Pragmata. That's a good call. Pragmata is one that could get delayed. Absolutely. Good call. We've still seen nothing. Who said Pragmata? Because that's a great call. Parmeet Singh. Yeah, that's a good call, man. Good call. Pragmata. I hope it's this year, but yeah, that's another one that we've seen nothing about that thing. We don't know jack about it. That's a hardcore candidate for delay. Yeah, that's a great call. I hope it's this year, but, you know. Any game that you haven't seen nothing about it, you know, you got to question it. We're still early in the year, so it's not the end of the world. I'm just saying, like, if you've seen nothing but a concept trailer or a logo, you should not lock that thing in. Split End 89. Where do you think Dead Island 2 lands in sales? Dying Light 2 really surprised last year, and this one has co-op as well. With decent reviews, I feel it could be a sleeper. I agree with you, Split End. So first of all, shout out Split End, helps me mod the channel. Great friend of mine. Check out his work at Gaming Trend. Dead Island 2, as long as it reviews decent, and when I say decent, it doesn't even need to be like this high 80s or 90s Metacritic game. For the type of game Dead Island is, as long as this thing lands, high 70s. We're talking like 78, 79 to low 80s, 81, 82. I would say anywhere in that 78 to 82 range. Yeah, I agree. I think it could totally be a sleeper hit. People love zombie games. They really like co-op games. The first Dead Island was a huge seller. People forget that. Dead Island 1 sold a ton of copies. So as long as it... Now, if this review's like a Saints Row, where's Saints Row at? Where's Saints Row? I'm only bringing up Saints Row because it's another game from, the same holding company. Where did Saints Row end up hitting? Yeah, dude, wow. Saints Row's at 61 on Metacritic. Oof. Yeah, if it comes in the 60s, no, it's going to bomb. But as long as this thing comes in very high 70s, low 80s, it should do well. Where did Dead Island 1 review? Because keep in mind, like I said, Dead Island 1 was a huge hit. People forget that. A huge hit. Okay, so the original Dead Island is right in that range. It's at 80 on PC. And wow, it's actually much lower, 71 on Xbox. And it still sold a ton, guys. A ton. 71 on consoles and 80 on PC. So that's what I mean. This doesn't need to be this game got an 89 on Metacritic. It doesn't need to do that at all. High 70s, low 80s, it's going to do very solid, yeah. Look at how much the first one sold at a 71 Metacritic. Not every game, we've talked about this. Some games the reviews matter massively. Some games the reviews are like, it doesn't really matter. It does not matter what Madden gets on Metacritic. It has zero impact. Madden can get a 30 on Metacritic. It will not impact how it sells. Call of Duty can get an 85 on Metacritic, or it could get a 71 on Metacritic. It will not impact sales whatsoever. There's some games it super matters. Some games it don't. Dead Island's one of those. I think it somewhat matters, but only matters if they're like really bad. As long as the reviews are this game is okay, I think it will be good enough for that audience that wants that type of game. Just can't hit like 60s, and no, that ain't gonna cut it. Benji with a 5 super chat. Benji, PSVR 2 marketing is weird. Yeah, it's very bad. Shouldn't GT7 have been pushed more than Call of the Mountain? Rumors of Alex coming. Why not talk about it? Well, Alex is weird because there's still no actual evidence it's coming. There have been rumblings for a while that it's coming, but I would think that by now they would have announced this thing if it really is. So part of me feels like those rumblings are fake. Because if they've still not announced Alex, it's a little strange. I see why they pushed Call of the Mountain more than GT7, because Call of the Mountain is a brand new, built from the ground up PSVR 2 game, whereas GT7, it's just like additional, which I've heard it's actually great, by the way. I heard it's an awesome implementation of VR. But GT7 is like an already released game, whereas Call of the Mountain's brand new. So I get why they push that, but yeah, in terms of the marketing in general, it's bad. And I think the marketing for PSVR 2 is bad because they know it's not going to sell well. So they don't want to spend a lot of money on it. So at least not up front. Maybe this thing legs out long term, but I've talked about this for weeks and weeks to the lead up as people ask me. The engagement numbers for PSVR 2 were very bad on social media, very bad. Whether it was YouTube views, whether it was Twitter likes, whether it was in comments and engagement, very low. So you don't want to spend a ton on marketing if you don't think you're going to sell a ton of units. But I do agree, they probably could have done a bit better, maybe. Tonsi K with a 2. Hi, thank you so much, Tonsi. Your estimation for each console sales this fiscal year? Man, that is hard to say. That would be something I'd have to like sit down and math out. That would be very, very hard. Because this fiscal year is not even over yet. Let's see what they actually ship in this last quarter, because that's going to tell us a lot. How much does Switch decline year over year? How close does PlayStation 5 get to their actual forecast? You know what I mean? These are a bit tough to just do off the top of your head. Let me see something. I think PS5 will get over 20 million next year. Now, how much over that, I don't know. But I think they will clear 20. Because right now they're forecasting 19. And I think they're going to get close. If they don't hit the 19, they're going to get very close. I think they will do over 20. Now, an exact unit, I don't know. I'm going to say over 20 million. Switch, there's this weird report out of Bloomberg that they think that it's going to go up next year. I've said this before. Nintendo's out of their minds if they think that's going to happen. They're out of their minds if they think they're going to ship more Switches next year than this year. Sorry, but I hate to say it. It's just I don't see it happening. Because right now they're forecasting what? Let's look at this Bloomberg article. Yeah, this Bloomberg article, by the way, in January claims that, roughly 21 million Switches for this fiscal year and that they're going to go up next year. They said they lowered their forecast to 19 million units this November because of component shortages. It's like, I don't see Switch doing over 20 million next year. I don't see them doing over 20. I could be wrong, but I don't see it. I think Switch is just too far into its life cycle now. I think Switch will come under 20, but still high, but under 20. I think PlayStation 5 will be over 20. And Xbox Series is going to be much lower than both of these. Xbox, if they're let's just guesstimate, because Ampere's saying 18.5 million sell-through. Obviously, shipped will be a bit higher than that. Let's just say that lifetime this thing's around 19 or 20 million. And that's over the course of what? Almost 3 years. Over 2. I mean, I see Xbox going over 10, but 15? Can they ship 15 million next year? They're at 20 now. Let's just say, by the way, I keep saying, let's say they're around 20. I don't know. We'll see. Xbox is hard to say because their hardware has not been looking good recently. Like, let's see what Xbox actually ships this next quarter. But those are the two I'll predict. I'll predict Switch under 20, Xbox or PlayStation over 20. Xbox, I don't know. I need to see what Xbox ships this coming quarter because they had a really bad holiday. Like, their holiday quarter was bad. So I need to see what they ship this next quarter. Jacob Novik here with the super chat. Thank you so much, Jacob. Hi, Benji. With Reuters saying that Europe are likely to approve the Activision deal, do you see it being done before Xbox's June show, like Phil said all along? We got an estimate here from J2. I'll read that out because that's fun. You're pretty close to me, J2 Blue Gauge. I think we're pretty close. So Jacob is saying, do I think it'll be done before June? Europe will obviously be done. Does the FTC really want to go to court, by the way? That's the big question in the room. Because if they do, then that's in August, which would be later, right? Didn't they set the initial court date in August? I don't know if this actually goes to court, though. I don't know if you guys saw. Bloomberg just wrote an article today that the head of the FTC is like being heavily targeted. And this is after she's had multiple people leave the FTC because they have no faith in how it's being run. I think FTC is actually going to probably give in here pretty soon. I think she's going to be forced to give into it. So I actually think both Europe and FTC will be done before June. Yes. I wouldn't have said that about the FTC a few weeks ago, but after more people have left the FTC and after these reports now coming out of Bloomberg that she's being targeted, yeah, I think the FTC is going to have to give in. I think it's all going to come down to the UK. The UK seems like they're the ones that are going to want to fight it. So what I'll say, Jacob, is I think FTC and Europe are done by June. UK is a wild card, dude. UK could either eventually just give in because Europe passes it and let's say FTC does as well, which I think there's a chance of. If both FTC and Europe give into it. I know FTC have moved to block, but they can change their minds on it. If they both give in, maybe UK ends up giving in, but we'll have to see. UK right now is the wild card in this whole thing, in my opinion. Because even if it goes to court, I expect Microsoft to beat the FTC, but that would, of course, be after E3. So, I think the wild card here is the UK. And J2 Blue's estimations, which I think are pretty... And I know you're saying UK has an April deadline, but they could always push that back. Stuff gets pushed back all the time. At least I think. I don't live in the UK, but I know that like FTC have pushed stuff. Europe has pushed stuff. So I know right now April is their deadline, but you never know if they move that. But we'll have to see. Yeah, I agree, Anthony. Europe was the most resistant, or the least resistant, in UK the most. It's too early to say. Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to say. It's going to all come down to the UK, in my opinion, because I think FTC is going to end up giving in here pretty soon, if they still keep getting this kind of pressure that they're getting right now. J2 Blue engages estimates, which are pretty close to what I'm thinking for next fiscal year. 22 million PS5, 18 million Switch, 15 million Xbox. I think you're in the right about range. PS5 somewhere a bit over 20, Switch a bit under 20, and Xbox around 15. That is around where I'm thinking too, J2. I think you could move any of those a mil or two, but that does sound about right. It's their final deadline. Thanks for the clarification, Fred. It's their final deadline. Can't be delayed by the UK any longer. All right, so we'll know soon, guys. We will know soon. To me, UK decides it all. So we'll know by April if this thing's going through, in my opinion, because I don't think the FTC can stop this. So, like I said, even if they drag it out to court, I expect Microsoft to win in court. They are having a terrible time lately winning anything in court. So we'll know in April. That's pretty nice to know that I didn't know that this is it's the final deadline. They can't push it anymore. So we'll know in April, because to me, UK decides it now. It's all down to UK. Europe's already going to pass it. FTC is going to either lose in court or give in, because they're under immense pressure right now themselves, just as an organization. And but UK is the wild card. So we'll know by April. So to answer your question, yeah, we'll probably know by June, probably. Last couple questions, and I gotta go, guys. JCat, Octopath Traveler 2 has underperformed the first time in Japan by 30%, even accounting for digital. First game had very high digital due to selling out in Japan. Do you have insight into how the game is performing at retail in the West? I checked Steam database, and Octopath Traveler 2 is doing better than 1. Checked Amazon US. There's a large gulf between Switch and PlayStation. JCat, first of all, great to see you. Thanks for help modding the channel and everything you do. Octopath Traveler 2, to me, did not have near the buzz as the first game. It didn't seem like. It felt like the announcement was super hype, but after that, things kind of really fell off in terms of online. In terms of retail, I can tell you they did not ship a lot to retail, and what they did is basically Switch. Like you mentioned with Amazon with the big gulf, that sounds about right for what I'm seeing too. It's basically the Switch version is like the vast, I don't know about a percentage, but the vast bulk of retail units for Octopath that they shipped is going to be Switch. Yeah, very little on PlayStation. Now, maybe PlayStation makes up some of the gap with digital. You never know. But in terms of physical, it'll be a giant gap between Switch and PlayStation. I don't think Octopath 2 out the gate is going to do crazy momentum, but everything I'm seeing is that the game is fantastic. So maybe it does surprisingly strong legs, JCat. We'll have to see. Maybe this is a game that's going to sell over time. You know, it could be one of those situations. Because I am seeing, like, the people that are playing 2 are raving about it. So more than they raved about the first game. So maybe this is a game that, maybe the launch is a little underwhelming, but it legs good. We'll have to see. Couple super chats coming in right at the end. D Jones with a 5. New Ori game being rumored. Which studio would you want to make it, since Microsoft broke ties with Moon Studio? Oh, that's interesting. Does Moon not own the Ori IP? Microsoft owns that? I would have thought that Moon did, but maybe not. Oh, maybe Microsoft does own Ori. That's interesting. They do. Interesting. I didn't know that. D. Jones, you just made that very interesting to me. I had no idea that Microsoft owned Ori and not Moon. Yeah. That is an interesting wrinkle. Had no idea. That'll be interesting. I don't know if they would want to do Ori without Moon. That's a pretty... That's like a game that feels very associated with the studio. You know what I mean? I'd be a little cautious if they take Ori away from Moon and just do their own thing with it. On one hand, I would understand it because the first two Ori games are both beloved and they both performed very well for the size games that they are. So on one hand, I see why Microsoft would be like, we want more Ori, and clearly Moon's done with it. And so on one hand, I can see Microsoft being like, we got to find a way to make more Ori games. But on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know that you would want someone besides Moon making it. Dude, so that's hard. Your question on which studio to make it, I got no idea. I feel bad because this is a super chat, but I have no idea. I have no idea, D. Jones, who you would give Ori to. Because to me, there's not an Xbox first-party team that could make something like that with experience at least. I don't know. Weirdly, maybe Obsidian, since Obsidian like has big versatility. Like they can do such a wide range of things, but they already have so many projects. I don't know if Obsidian would want to make a Ori game. It's hard to say, dude. Hard to say. But yeah, I had no idea that Microsoft owned the IP. That is interesting. That is interesting. Frank W. Have to leave now with a 5 super chat. Hope you feel better by now. Appreciate your positive attitude for many. Well, Frank W. Thanks. I'm definitely making progress every day. Working hard to improve myself. Get the mental health back on track. It's one of those things that's weird. Anyone that's gone through it, I won't go over this long, but like sometimes when you go off the rails, you can be off the rails for a little bit. It's not always just like, oh, I feel bad for like 2 or 3 days and then I'm instantly better. You know, sometimes when these things kick in, it takes weeks, and that's what this has been. It's taken weeks for me to get back on track. So still getting there, slowly but surely. The worst is behind me, but I'm definitely nowhere near 100% yet. I would say I'm at like 70 to 75%. But thank you. All right, 1 or 2 questions, and I'm going to go. 1 or 2 more random ones, and then I got to bounce. Sounds PP7, there was a report that the Metro Exodus sequel is fully playable. Any chance we see it at the end of this year? Or is 2024 more likely? And what would you like to see from 4A Metro going forward? Definitely makes sense. Makes sense they're making another one. These Metro games have been super successful. Could we see it before the end of the year? I'm going to guess no. Like, if you mean announced, yes. Release, I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess this is releasing next year. This year already seems so crowded that I'd be careful launching this year. I don't know. We'll see. This year's already incredibly crowded. So it might be smart to wait till next year. But either way, I don't think it's releasing this year. I think that they probably will announce it. But when did Exodus come out? Was that like 2018 or something like that? Or was that 2019? That was 2019, so, you know, this year would be 4 years, and we got to factor in pandemic impact. Yeah, I'm going to say next year. I'm going to say the next Metro game probably launches next year, but it probably gets announced this year for a next year release. I could see it being like Exodus was an early year release, because Metro Exodus was February 2019. I could see something like that for the next one, you know, February, March, April of 2024 for that one. I could see it. Luis is saying, Benji, maybe tomorrow is the day for Starfield announcement. Maybe. VGC editor tweeted out that the announcement was imminent. Still hasn't happened. We'll have to see. Quinder Darker, want to know how Atomic Heart's doing? Very well. Very well. Its Steam peak was almost 50,000, which is very good for a game like this. Where did that finish off at? It was close to 50K. I remember that. It was 40 something. Where did it peak at? Oh, not 50, 40. My bad. My bad. 50 would have been amazing. It peaked at almost 40K on Steam, 38,469, which 40,000 is pretty strong for a single player game. And we have to keep in mind this is also a day one Game Pass launch. That's way higher than other games like High on Life did, for example, in terms of like Steam performance, not Game Pass. But like High on Life's Steam peak, which was another day one Game Pass launch, that game's peak was only 11,000, whereas Atomic Heart peaked at 38,000. However, High on Life seemed to do a little bit better on Game Pass. Atomic Heart hit top 3 on Game Pass, which is very strong. High on Life, however, hit number 1. So I won't expect this to be a record-breaking launch for Game Pass like High on Life was. However, very strong. It did nearly 40K concurrent on Steam, which for a big multiplayer game wouldn't be great, but for a single-player game, that's very good. And it ranked top 2 on PC Game Pass, top 3 on console Game Pass. Good. Atomic Heart definitely did well. Ray Domjin, good to see you. Zen Rand, how many guitars do you own? I currently own 3. I currently have a Les Paul, a Schecter, and a Ibanez acoustic. Yeah, I currently have an Ibanez acoustic, a Schecter, and a Les Paul. Now, if you're talking like how many have I owned over my life, like over 10 probably. But I currently have 3. All 6 strings. I really want to get an 8 or an 8 string or 9 string even. But right now, those are the 3. Those are the 3: Schecter, Ibanez, and Les Paul. I play metal, deathcore mostly. That's why I need more strings. That's why I need more strings. 7, 8, or 9. So I play a lot of deathcore. What up, Pio White Wolf? Good to see you, man. Soul Lab, first impressions of Metroid Prime. I haven't started it yet. I got it. Metroid Prime right here. I got my physical. I have never played a Metroid Prime game. Don't worry, you guys. I know some people are excited to see my response to Metroid Prime because I have never played any of the Metroid Prime games. I played Metroid Dread, but I've never played any of the Primes. So I'm going to be going in for the first time on this. So I'm very, very excited. I haven't gotten a chance to start it yet, though. I'm still finishing Hogwarts Legacy because that game is like 400 million hours long. So this is soon. I should be starting Metroid Prime in the next few days. I'll let you know. Mitchell says, hi, adorable Benji. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I don't think I'm adorable. I think I'm pretty ugly, but, you know, I'm also pretty hard on myself, though, about, like, everything in life. So I appreciate that you think I'm adorable. I consider myself very ugly, but thank you. I appreciate it. Nardistel, I'm worried about Final Fantasy 16. Seems that none of the trailers have had that many views or big buzz. To me, it looks amazing, but for some fans, what has been shown has been divisive. Yeah, I've also noticed 16 doesn't have massive metrics. I'm not going to get too worried about that yet, though. But I do notice that as well, Narstel. You're not the only one who has observed that. I have too. Final Fantasy 16 has never been a social media metrics juggernaut, but I've talked about it before. You can't always rule everything by social metrics. Some games do, like, and I do think they're very important. I always watch them. I keep an eye. And like I said, I think last chat, like, by and large, there is a good ratio between them. But sometimes games don't have, or movies or whatever, huge social buzz, but still perform pretty well. Look at, I would say one example of that pre-launch would have been High on Life. Like, High on Life didn't get a ton of traction until pretty close to launch. And then, obviously, once it came out, it did crazy views on, like, TikTok and stuff. But, like, early on when High on Life was announced, it wasn't really blowing up social media. And then you saw it do ridiculous numbers on Game Pass, for example. An example, a bit of the inverse, is Death Stranding had ridiculous social metrics, and then it sold well in the end, but it wasn't like a colossal seller, but like its social metrics were crazy, like for the trailer views. So 16 we'll have to watch, but I do agree that its social buzz isn't crazy, not crazy. All right, guys, I think I'm going to end the chat. I had a ton of fun, but I've been going for a long time now, and I think I'm gonna bounce. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats, and then we're going to call it there. Thanks for a great turnout today. We're still over 100. We've been over 100 almost this entire chat. That is, like, for me, guys, great numbers. Thank you so much. This was a very strong chat. I hope you guys had fun. I'm always a little, nervous when I do these chats, not in terms of being here with you guys. I love doing them. I'm just always like, do you guys really want to just sit here and listen to me talk for an hour and a half? Clearly some of you guys do. We have 100 of you here, but I really, really appreciate that, guys. I'm going to call the chat there. Thank you so much. We'll end it with Dior because it's on context and we're good. Okay, so we're going to do this. Dior is going to get the last question just because I saw it whenever I scrolled down, and then we're going to bounce. Dior Amaro here saying, Benji, last question. How big is Destiny for Sony, and how big will Bungie be for Sony? Next Bungie IP, how big? Yeah, for anyone that missed this, Lightfall, the reception is interesting because I know in the hardcore Destiny community, this expansion is being met with a bit of a mixed bag. I'm seeing some people really love this expansion, but I'm seeing some people not necessarily like it so much. But the one thing we do know, Lightfall drove Destiny 2, which, think about how long Destiny 2 has been around now, guys. It had the highest Steam peak that this game's ever had. Ever, which is pretty crazy when you think about how long Destiny's been around. So the fact Destiny 2 can still pull these kinds of numbers is really incredible. It's truly, we talk about a lot lately about all of the failures in games as a service, because there has been a lot lately, but there's no clear or shining example of a good long-term games as a service as Destiny 2. This thing has been incredible. I mean, it's still hitting all-time peaks all these years later. So yeah, Destiny is massively important for PlayStation since they own them now, and their new IP is going to be, I think, hugely important. Now, it sounds like it's way different. The rumors are it's very PvP heavy and Overwatch-ish. I don't know that, by the way. That's just from the job listings and stuff. It has implied that this new Bungie IP may have some ties to Overwatch. And whenever I say that, don't think it's going to play exactly like Overwatch, but it sounds like it's some sort of hero-type shooter with a lot of focus on characters, kind of like how Overwatch is. One of the reasons people love Overwatch isn't just the gameplay, but they love Mercy and Genji and Soldier and Winston, and they love these characters. It sounds like that's what Bungie's positioning their new IP to be, something in that space. It could be huge, though. I mean, it's Bungie. Bungies are masters of big multiplayer games. Look at how big they made the Halo games multiplayer. Look at Destiny. So, Dior, very, very, very important for Sony in terms of financials. Absolutely. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it there. Thanks for a great chat. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for making the turnout so strong today. I was not expecting that at all. The stream was over 100 almost the entire chat, which for me is great. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do one of these chats every single week. We'll just talk about the big news in the video game industry every week. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter, of course. That's where I'm the most active. That's where most of my following is. But if you're not following me already, make sure to hit me up on Twitter. And I'm going to bounce, guys. So stay safe, play some games, and I will catch you either here on YouTube next week, or I will catch you on Twitter very, very soon, because I'm going to be on there soon, guys. All right, everyone, have a great day, great evening, wherever you are. You're all amazing. Love you guys. Thanks for all the support, and I will see you later. Bye. Bye.